This is the Executive Committee of the Metro Council, and I do detect a quorum with Pro Tem Porterfield, Chair Cap, Chair Cash, Chair Hill, Chair Horton, Chair Evans Siegel, and Chair Toombs present. Thank you all for being here. All right. Again, I want to thank our outgoing chairs and congratulate you all as new and or returning chairs. And thank you for appointing your vice chairs and congratulate them as well. I did want to mention transition memos. We are a little bit behind on those. I did get some kind of draft early form of that after the last executive committee. I did invite chairs if they wanted or had relevant work that we wanted me to be aware of prior to making new determinations about chairmanship, that they could go ahead and send that to me in draft form. But we do want to make sure in the next few coming weeks, to the benefit of whomever is going to be following you, that you do get those completed. And we have not, nor I have not been very prescriptive about the format that those are in. And so some people have put them all in tables and have all kinds of legislation, and others just sent kind of a narrative email. Wanted these first couple of years just to see like what format those come in and how we might maybe set a template for them to be helpful going forward. So once I have all of those in, I'm probably going to, before y'all are completing your chairmanships, you'll have like a format for that to give you a little bit of guidance. I didn't want to be hyper prescriptive because everybody kind of organizes their work a little bit differently or thinks of it in different ways. The goal of that is so that we maintain institutional memory as we go from chairmanship to chairmanship, whether it be a 2-year chairmanship or a 1-year chairmanship. As we all know as council members, there are often things that you have to hold the through line on that don't quite, get across the finish line, but you want to be in the awareness of the subsequent chair. So I would ask if you have submitted that, whether in draft format or not yet submitted that, that you do target, please, mid-October to get those finished. So appreciate that. And then I guess I will mention them just lastly, because don't wait till you get to the end of your chairmanship to be like, oh, what do I want the next chair to know? Like, kind of be thinking about, you want to kind of keep up with that throughout your chairmanship, and that can just be, a brain dump Word document that you organize on the back end into a format that will be helpful with a little more guidance this next time around. Okay, so that's transition memos. I did want to encourage you all in your capacities as chair to make sure you are recording attendance and recording that accurately. Staff does take those and keep up with that. And I know sometimes if somebody is coming from another committee or tardy and you're managing that meeting, that can be a little bit challenging, especially for those of you in the chamber. And so to the extent that staff can assist, but we want to make sure that those are accurate kind of accountings there for attendance in your committee. And so would appreciate that. So Karina Valdez on our staff team, she is going to be your primary point of contact as it relates to legislation and signing on to that. So you all will already now have received this 2 times, right? And Brian was kind of speaking to it earlier. You are going to get those Friday at noon from Karina Valdez with the administration legislation that in your capacity as chair, you will typically be the primary sponsor to carry that legislation. Please kindly. So the deadline is 11 on Tuesday, but Budget and Finance Chair Toombs, like when you have a like big chunk of legislation, if you wait right till the deadline, that does put a fair amount of pressure on staff to get it all entered into the system. And so you do have to affirmatively confirm via email that you want to, and you can do it summarily. I want to sign on to all these things, or you can request some additional backup information before you sign on if you want to, but you do have to confirm, and the easiest way to do that is just by email. So I would encourage you to kind of set yourself a Monday deadline, and then if you have to take it into Tuesday, that's great. But I know Karina would appreciate that assistance. So I did want to share with y'all, Mr. Clerk and staff were kind to look at the legislation that gets delegated into committee. I will maybe share that at the main meeting, but Budget and Finance had 591 pieces of legislation. Planning and Zoning had 526. Transportation Infrastructure had 361. Public Health and Safety had 210 pieces of legislation. Rules, Public Elections and Confirmations had, legislation slash, does that include the people who were referred?
No, it does not.
That's just legislation. Okay, all right, 116. Arts, Parks, Libraries, and Entertainment, 117. And Government Operations, last but not least, very importantly still, Government Operations, 93 pieces of legislation. So that kind of helps y'all see a little bit about the flow of that legislation. So thank you, Brian, and Mr. Clerk and others for pulling that together for us. Okay, so Margaret Darby sent you all the scheduling policy today via email. Karina is also your primary person for scheduling meetings. Okay, and so you have your meetings on a pretty standard cadence for standing committees, with the exception of Chair Cap and Charter. And so if you are wanting a staff person to give a very brief update, kind of under the umbrella of your chair report, again, very briefly, but it is helpful for Karina to know that so that she can sort of adjust the times. She might give you some insight like, oh, actually, you have like 50 bills in Budget and Finance, and so this might not actually be the best time to have that guest. Would you consider doing that at the next meeting, right? So just sort of keeping some insight on that. And also as well, if there are things that you have identified that in your capacity as chair that you intend to take off of consent because you think it is illustrative of a particular issue or something that you want to elevate in your chairmanship, and thus there may be a little additional discussion or time that you want to hold for that in committee, just confer with Karina on that, because that's going to help staff get those meetings so that they're not running over into the next one and so forth. So, okay, so we talked about that scheduling policy, and if you would, please do confer with me, like on any special meetings or joint meetings, if from a policy perspective or things you're hearing in the community, from a continuing education perspective, things that you think would have value for the membership. I would love to kind of come alongside with you and be helpful in that regard. So let's just kind of stay on the same page about those special called or joint meetings. To that end, around continuing education, whether events, webinars, things like that, in your capacity as chair, please do be on the lookout, whether through NLC emails or certain policy nonprofits that you follow. I try to follow all of these things, but I will send some things to staff and ask to put on the internal Outlook calendar. But if something is on your radar screen because you think it has high educational value, whether for your committee or the body as it relates to policy, please do send that to coadmin@nashville.gov and just say, forward the internal calendar. right? And then members can see that. It is in their Outlook, and if they want to register separately for that webinar. Additionally, if it's something that you think has value, right, and so you've sent it to staff to put on that calendar, you may also want to obviate that by way of your chair's report, right? So when you sit down with your committee, you know, I shared with staff, there's an upcoming webinar, I think that would be interesting based on this issue or this policy. You know, I am relying on you all to be the subject matter experts for the things that are under the purview of your committee, okay? Alrighty, so we talked about that. Also, please make sure that you are following the council's social media accounts. And I do ask chairs if you would, you know, our just standard stuff that's on you know, our meeting cadence, links to our agenda in your capacity as chair. If you would kindly just share that into your platforms as you see fit, whatever your primary one that you like to use the most. We want more members of the public knowing about our social media accounts and following us, but as these are new this term, and Margaret, we're about 1 year in, right? We launched all those
Close to it.
in November of last year, so it's new, right? And we need to get some uptake on that. You all have good social media following, so it would be great if you would be sharing those. And as it relates to webinars, special events, things that are coming up, I will do my best in my individual capacity to tag you on some things if I think it's related to the policy work or your committee. And you know, if you see fit, please do share those as well. Okay, on that front as well, next on the agenda, I think that, does anybody have any questions? Section 2, letter A, expectations for committee chairmanship. Any questions? Okay. All right, so regarding kind of upcoming events, collaborations, continuing ed, we touched on that somewhat about sharing those. You will have seen, for example, at our last meeting, Chair Vo was the point person for our collaboration with the libraries because it was library card sign-up month, right? To the extent that we can be consistent this term, we're starting to kind of, you know, I think we're going to keep doing library card sign-up month. We will have coming up on our meeting of October 9th, our Fight Flu opportunity. So we'll partner with the Metro Public Health Department to provide flu shots in advance of our October 9th meeting. We try to publicize that within this building. We have had great turnout for that. I think it has been the highest turnout single event of the health department's Fight Flu campaign when they launch it. So we get 65 some odd people. So I think, I don't know what goal we're going to set for this year, but you know, we want to share that information with the public. And so, you know, Chair of Public Health and Safety, Mr. Huffman, that'll kind of be his primary, right? In your capacity as chair, you know, to the extent that you can kind of boost the work and share that, that's great. But as Chair Vo was the point person for library card sign up, Chair Huffman will be the point person for the Fight Flu campaign, you know, walk to school day, transit month, bike month. It's a lot, but that'd be Chair Evan Siegel, right? So when we're kind of working on those coordinated efforts, we cannot do too many things well based on staff capacity. So if you do anticipate something like that in your capacity as chair that you want to invite the council to, or you want to kind of come alongside a department in a collegial way to boost something, we need to have a pretty good runway on that. And ideally, the primary point of contact is like the PIO in that particular department, right? Like when we did the libraries thing, our PIO is working with their PIO, ditto on the flu campaign. So as you look ahead to this term, if there are things and events that you want to kind of elevate or obviate or kind of make an official collaboration, we're going to need to have a good few months of lead time on that, okay? All right, so that is upcoming events, collaboration, continuing ed. Here, I'm going to just stop briefly because it is an upcoming event, our National League of Cities. Rosie, can you share any information about that? I think we have maybe 15 members attending.
Yeah, 15 members, and it's the 19th to the 23rd of November, and an email's going to go out to you in the morning. It's going to give you some updates, and just to make sure you have your dates correct, you're, departing and coming back, just so I can make sure your hotel is correct. And looking forward to everybody being able to go and learning a lot. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to call me.
Go ahead.
Is it too late to sign up? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I had a place just for you.
So as y'all are probably already aware, because we've had several turns on this, but Nashville is a member of the National League of Cities. I do encourage you to look kind of in your other inbox. That is where you'll find some good informational webinars. I know Chair Toombs has elevated a few of those of late. We've tried to get them on the calendar. But, as a member city, you are all, by virtue of your service in this elected body, also likewise members, right? So you can log in, sign up for the webinars free. The really great thing about National League of Cities, and we're wanting to make sure when we go there that we're thinking about policy work, issues that other cities are encountering that we can learn from. And so I do ask, and I think Rosie's email will prompt, get that agenda and sort of be looking at, like, these are the things I want to go to. And there are mobile workshops. I went on one in Atlanta related to parks and stormwater and water infrastructure that was really fascinating. So some of those are deep dives. Again, no cost other than your registration, but they do sell out, right? So go ahead and be looking at that if you're planning to join us, and think about, okay, my services chair, my personal policy interests, like what do I want to attend? And then let's also be thinking about, because sometimes you can't do all the things, right? So who among your colleagues, if you can't go to this, is another chair or a member of your committee going to go to that? And can they kind of, share some information back? In that regard, one thing I did want to mention, I think I forgot to mention that earlier, was the council office now has in one spreadsheet all the committees, task force, advisory groups, commissions on which your fellow colleagues serve. Okay, so if your committee elects somebody to serve on the Metro Action Commission, or Chair Horton in his capacity as chair serves on the Planning Commission, Ms. Evan Siegel as a committee member, she was previously the Traffic and Parking Commissioner, right? So for those kind of connections that are by virtue of committee election or are related to the work happening in your committee, do try to hold some space, again, in that chair's report time, and kind of set up a cadence and an expectation. So if your committee elected somebody into Metro Action Commission, is that person coming back to your committee and sharing what's happening at the Metro Action Commission, right? Doesn't have to be every meeting. It can be as needed because something of interest came up at the meeting, or in your capacity as chair, if you want to set up, we're going to do this twice, we're going to do this quarterly or something like that. But you will know who those folks are, but sometimes there are ones that are maybe less obvious. Councilmember Ewing was appointed by the mayor to serve on the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Might be interesting to know what's going on in that committee and to elevate that through transportation and infrastructure, right? So we do have the big spreadsheet of all of that, and staff, Karina's happy to send that to you for your reference. Otherwise, kind of internal reference documents, as far as the committee structure overview, as you all may be aware, Putting legislation into the legislative committees is a delegated authority of the vice mayor. So Karina has that delegated authority to assign legislation to committees. She has an internal reference document for that purpose. And sometimes you're not always seeing legislation from certain departments, but if you do have a question about that, she can send you that document. At the start of your chairmanship, Margaret shared with you the basic procedures for committee chairs. Those are laminated on the dais in your committee meeting. So just, these are kind of resources that the office maintains to support your chairmanship. So, okay, let's see. What is next? Let's see here. Any questions about any of that so far? Okay, all right. Next thing, or kind of meatiest thing on our agenda today, you all have in front of you a packet. It has the kind of headline cover letter from Accenture. This opportunity for this consultancy procurement is something that, in my capacity as vice mayor and having served previously, I think we have talked a good bit as a council, whether through former pro tems or informal committees of the council or executive committee, about really kind of doing an operational analysis of how the council does its work and how the office operates in support of that work, as to number of staff, particular titles and assignments and different things like that. And so this work was scoped preliminarily for purposes of requesting proposals, anticipating potentially 2 or 3 phases, and if we were to have to proceed with resizing the council. We do not want to get ahead of ourselves. We do not want to presume that that is going to happen, but it would be, as I have said previously, I think imprudent and irresponsible if we were not laying the groundwork if we had to follow that path. So I think this work will have great value, even if we stay the exact size that we are now. And so this consultancy contemplates staff interviews, talking to Margaret, talking to former people in Margaret's role, talking to current staff, talking to departments with whom our staff works to get their feedback, benchmarking as well against other council offices and peers. National League of Cities is kindly going to be conducting some of that related work that I think will work in tandem with this, surveying large city council offices to ask them about their operational models. And so we looked, I did initially in following our procurement code. We first have to go to folks that are already kind of on call and under contract with Metro. We got 1 response to that. I read that response. I called the references for the partner firm to a local firm with which this local firm had not worked before, but still called those references. I did not feel confident that that 1 response was going to meet our needs. And so then we went up to the next tier as obligated in our process, and those are cooperatives. And so we put out the same scope to that cooperative, and at that time we got 2 responses. Read those responses, called those references, and I feel that the response of Accenture as well as their references was the one that was the best. And so what is before y'all for your awareness and consideration, I hope potentially as co-sponsors, is this resolution that accepts the terms of the Cooperative Purchasing Master Agreement for IT and consulting services. So Accenture has a particular specialty as well in supportive technologies. So as we look at just kind of all the aspects of how we do the work, that will be a factor, as well as just kind of organizational models. So I've already said too much about all that. I'm sure you may have some questions, but at present, contemplate filing this for the next council agenda. Yes, Chair Cash.
Thanks. I think this is exciting. I'm going to say this, and I'm not making a judgment call about it. The cover letter seems very prescriptive in that they seem to have and that there are good things there are good aspects to this, but that they seem to have a process and they stick to that process. They've got, in 10 weeks, we're going to have 5 actionable outputs, and boom, there they are, like keywords for them. And we got STAR model there. I guess I'm just wondering, I'm gonna stumble kind of trying to get this out, but like they've got a process, and part of that process is getting feedback from staff and I guess from us.
Yes.
And I guess just at the onset, I want to understand what their understanding of what they're supposed to do is, and if that
I appreciate
task of theirs, or the understood task of theirs is set, or if they still, before they get deep, does that make sense?
It is not set.
Okay.
It was basically with the knowledge that I had, what I thought was sort of a hypothetical TBD in conference with you all we had to have something that they could kind of respond to as to their kind of core competencies and their ability, and just I was not hyper prescriptive in the scope that I provided, but it was interesting to see, it ran the gamut from Chat GPT, took your scope, copy, paste, repeat, respond, to being more, so the acceptance of this cooperative purchasing master agreement, the scope is not finalized. It is just saying that we are willing to move forward in engaging with them, and then it is incumbent on me to make sure that we have a process that engages you all and the council, so everybody understands kind of collectively what we're going to do specifically, and everybody feels good about that, that it covers all the bases that we want it to. I alluded to that a little bit in this memo of September 19th that you also have. That we will continue to talk about this, and I do want this committee's input because obviously it affects the entire council and the office, and so this was an effort to the best of my ability to get this moving forward, so we have a capable consultant partner to address all the areas that I anticipate we might want to, but we might not take that approach, and we might not do this, and we are only going to focus on that, and that has not been determined.
Okay.
So this was this was not a hyper prescriptive request for proposals, ABC 1, 2, 3. Like I am not going to decide every single detail about that. It still remains open. If council chooses to pass this resolution, then at that juncture, we will determine what is the next meeting of this committee. Might we distill that down? Do we have a meeting for the full council if they want to attend? We'll need to kind of ascertain what the next steps in the process are, and I'm interested, in the consultant's feedback about how to make that constructive as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's the before they start kind of thing that, and like they're gonna
When
be
this
asking.
passes, it's not like they're off to the
Right.
races, like,
So
no,
they're gonna be asking a bunch of questions of people, but, you know, what is said to them ahead of time informs the questions that they ask and the areas that they're exploring.
Absolutely.
And
We
so-
need to hold ample space to make sure everybody, staff, Margaret, ourselves, has an understanding of what the timeline is gonna be, what the asks are going to be, before anybody is talking to staff and asking questions and interviewing people. We need to be real clear that this is something that we have decided is, gonna work. And so we will not be off to the races upon passage of this. We are absolutely gonna hold space for making sure we establish a phased scoping. And initially, that first phase, because again, we are not presuming that this council will be downsized.
Right.
But I think I have been hearing for 10 years now that council members do want to see if we can optimize how we are now.
Yes.
And doing that is important to inform if we were to have to change. Like,
I agree.
so, yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Are there any other questions about this? Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, I guess the initial work that will be done if this is to pass is to optimize how we currently operate and make recommendations on how the office could be structured. If it comes back, once the ruling comes back from the Supreme Court, at that point in time, we can either, if there are recommendations if the recommendations are for us as a 40-member body and the Supreme Court affirms a 40-member body, then we can go forth with the recommendations in that capacity. If the Supreme Court does something differently, then we can get recommendations from this group on what it would look like to be in compliance with the decision of the Supreme Court.
Correct, right. And so phase one is really fact-finding, right? It's interviewing, it's asking what kind of resources can be brought to bear for the current office. It does not presume, right? It's just understanding how we are now. And if we prevail and we maintain a 40-minute, then there will be recommendations based on how we are now. If we do not prevail, then we can hold some space as this committee sees fit for a variety of operational models. And maybe that's max 20. Maybe, we can talk about some other things. Maybe this body doesn't want to talk about it, but we'll have time then. So as I contemplate it, once this passes, we'll want this committee to settle on a preliminary, a scope, but that is sort of a phase one fact-finding analysis scope of how we are now. And that is the only thing, we are not committing ourselves to multiple phases and other things. Like we will hold space for phase one, and phase one, phase two will depend on what the Supreme Court rules. Yes. Mr. Cash, Chair. Yeah.
So I'm asking this, assuming that we don't prevail and that a huge part of this is shrinking the council, what that organizational structure looks like. We could do that, like, also, like, when we went, those of us that went through this, like, at the end of last term, understand the process, and it felt, and part of the reason it failed in court is that it was just the election was already happening,
Yeah,
right? People had, appointed treasurers and were running for a specific district. So I guess I want assurance that if that happens, that this isn't going to, like, we can do that work, like the planning department doing maps and deciding, about at-large stuff. We can do that stuff so that there's still plenty of time to work with the public, and it doesn't feel like this rush thing like it did last time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and part of engaging a consultant partner, right, and understanding that there's legal, there's charter, there's the planning department, there's the HR department, right, and all of these things are sort of tracking along with each other. And so this consultant, if we so choose, does have the competency to help manage that process, timeline that, public-facing timeline for the body, what decisions have to be made, at what threshold, what public meetings might we hold. This consultant had an excellent reference in Knox County Schools when they did a middle school kind of redraw and had to do all the public meetings for that and public facing. So we're all on, Team Nashville here, and we're not gonna be stepping on top of each other, but if we understand from the planning department what they understand their role to be and what, will be public facing related to that role, but yes, holding sufficient time for citizens of Nashville to feel that we have, if we have to, been very diligent about, engaging this moment for the best possible representation. And that is multifactorial, and it does require a high level of organization. And so I just am trying to kind of situate with the council, because this is about the council, that we have the competency with the consultant partner to manage this process in partnership with all our Metro peers, right? So that the timeline, as best we can understand it, is very clear and is not kind of too rushed.
One more quick question, if I may. Because this effort, involves laws, I'm just curious, does Accenture have lawyers on staff, or do we know that their process includes consulting lawyers about laws?
Well,
Does that make
so
sense?
we're not gonna step on the toes of the legal department, right? That is the role of the legal department. Again, we ideally will be able to situate a process to be managed, but legal will confer on legal matters and HR will confer on HR matters. And they have HR competencies as a consultant, but they're not going to get in front of our own Metro HR, right? And whatever elected official pay study needs to be done or that kind of stuff.
It's an advisory role, so.
Yes, right. We are asking them to advise us on a process, but we can lay down the framework on who is the primary person on each area. So this consultant is not giving us legal advice. So. Are there any additional questions or anything that anybody wants to share at this juncture?
Well, I think it's
Yep.
prudent to get this rolling, so thank you, Vice Mayor, for putting in all that legwork.
Appreciate that, thank you. I would ask if you all feel so called once reviewing the legislation, obviously online, all 250 some odd pages of all this is linked. This is just for your kind of general awareness in the context of this meeting. But I would ask in your capacity as the executive committee that you do just give a little time to this and consider if you would sign on as a co-sponsor for the legislation. If you do choose to do that, you would need to do that by 11 o'clock on Tuesday.
11 o'clock tomorrow, if you want your name on the agenda when it goes out on Wednesday.
Right.
You can always sign on to legislation at
Right.
any time.
Which I would appreciate if, again, you feel confident enough about it to sign on. I would like to show the body that we have discussed this. Again, I welcome any additional questions you have subsequent to this meeting, once you kind of dip into this a little further. But, yep. right, we're moving into council office updates, and I should have done this off the top in my vice mayor updates, but I did want to introduce Elizabeth Salek Kirby, who is with us here, and she is now serving as my executive assistant in a full-time capacity. I want to express, as I did by email, but say it here again for the record, my deep, deep appreciation for Elise Waller, who has immense institutional memory and has served as an executive assistant for myself, former vice mayors, Mayor Barry, and is still in our office in a part-time capacity as she was before. And so this really is a transition as it relates to part-time, full-time. And then Elizabeth is a resident of Clarksville. Most recently, professionally, she was a captain in the U.S. Army at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where she managed quite a lot of processes and people and teams. And she is additionally certificated in project management. And I think that will be very helpful to the office of the vice mayor as it relates to this project work that we were talking about and some of our kind of project-based things. So I want to welcome her, and y'all please make her welcome. If you do ever want to schedule a meeting with me, Elizabeth is your go-to person for that. And I did want to share as well, for simplicity's sake, now we have a new email, vicemayor@nashville.gov. If you send something to vicemayor@nashville.gov, I get that email and Elizabeth gets that email. Okay, yeah, if you want to schedule, Karina is your primary contact for all the legislation and the signing on and the committees and all those things. But Elizabeth is the primary contact for scheduling time with me. So, thanks, Elizabeth. I should have just done that right off the top, but it's council office updates. We're kind of in that sphere there. Okay, so we're moving into section 3 of our agenda. First section there is A on our website refresh. Margaret Darby, can you update us, please?
Yeah, so this is something that has been, I've been trying to get done for some time now, and with ITS's help and NetTango, they've really worked on this together to, from the back end, all of the pages that are referenced, like your council member page. Right now, it's kind of a picture of you and just, like your biography and your council history. And then there's a district page. And your district page has the map of your district and some other information on there, but they've been separated. So we have been working to get those combined into one. And I know this doesn't sound very exciting to you, but it is very exciting. It is a one-stop shop. When someone searches for their district, when a member of the community searches for their district, they will find not only their district, as is what they used to find in the past, and then have to go find who the council member for that district is, they now will find all of that together. So the new page will have, and it looks really pretty too, the new page will have your picture, all of your contact information on it. It'll have some drop downs with your bio information, which feel free if you want to look at those and update it, do that. It'll also have all of your updated information for the council work, your chairmanships and whatnot. It also has your district, kind of like some district data information, how many people live in your district. It'll take you to the district data maps. It also has your community events that you're having. So if you have a community meeting coming up that we've publicly noticed, it'll be on your page as well. And then it has some just general links at the bottom. It'll, obviously it's going to translate well to, people's cell phones and whatnot. The main landing page for council members has all the individual pictures of the council members, but it has a new feature now that as you are moving your mouse over it, if you hover over someone, it kind of lights up who that person is. It has direct your email on that page, so someone can email you directly from that page. And at the top of that page, it has the council district lookup, so that if someone is scrolling down and they see a whole bunch of council members, they can just put in their address up there and it'll take them straight to your page with all of this information. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's taken a long time. It's taken many, many meetings to get all of this done. It's taken a little headbutting with ITS to make sure that they do it. And so we're gonna roll it out soon as we get a photo to go on the front page to replace the empty council. We're kind of having conversations about what that picture should look like.
We've had an empty council chamber, like just the sad empty dais. Like when you land there, I'm like, there are people in this council, so we're gonna try to, we'll set the date for that with a fair warning, but maybe like that first November meeting. The thought would be that we can take a picture. Yep, there's the empty chamber on the landing page. But that we might contemplate doing a picture, much as we did when we celebrated Rosie's 50th anniversary with Metro, where we all just sort of stood at our desks and the cameraman took the picture from the top of the dais to the room and the body, so that all members are reflected in that photo rather than sort of a sad disembodied chamber from I don't know what year. But yeah, really appreciate Margaret and staff's engagement on the website and conferring with me back and forth on that, because y'all may not know or have experienced new or returning members. I mean, it was so like Byzantine layered into where you pointed people, so it was really hard to kind of send them to one place for where to land for all things related to your district, your meetings, yourself professionally, your profession, all those things. And it was just like, kind of how Nashville.gov feels, right? Like we just kept adding stuff on to it and they didn't quite speak to each other. So I think this will be a really great improvement. So, all right, on the tech front, as you all may be aware, occasionally I get contact from members of the community. I haven't heard from this person, or they haven't answered their voicemail, or this or that. Know that I am always here to support you and every member, and I am presuming the best, and I am always reminding folks that you all get a whole lot of emails and a whole lot of calls, and you work in a part-time capacity, and so I am not, when I'm getting those calls, in a scoldy posture, but in an effort to help you all, I have suggested that your voicemail for your 432 standard number automatically just goes to an email, so that you don't have to call up your voicemail from a separate phone line and so forth. So Rosie, can you speak to how that will be effectuated? There will be an opt-out if that's not your preference. If you like calling in and entering a code and listening to voicemails and taking notes like old school, you can still do that. But Rosie, can you speak to that?
Well, it would just, when this person calls, it will go strictly to your email, and you can just click on it and it'll tell you who it is, and you can, return that phone call right then, or put a flag on it to return when you're able to.
So there's a WAV file in there. Who has their set up that way right now? Okay.
There's a what now?
WAV is a
Like
type of
a
file,
wave,
like
a wave out. So you just literally click the arrow and like you can hear it on your phone, or what, like you hear the voicemail, you just don't have to dial in separately. So it's just kind of automating that process. I guess heretofore, the default is your messages stay in a conventional voicemail. Go ahead, Chair Cash.
At one point I switched mine, and it seems like, I'm trying to remember this, that there were two ways to do it, and each had an advantage and a disadvantage. I think at first, I don't remember, but I could see the number that was calling me. Now that I have it go to my voicemail on my phone, I can't see the number calling me. It's an 862-5300 number, and if they don't tell me what their number is, I have no way of. So I'm just putting that out there.
That's a good point, yeah. Rosie, do you know, have we corrected for that?
I haven't seen that, because usually I get mine on my email and it tells me up at the top.
The phone number
Yeah,
of the
it tells
person
me
who
the
has
phone
sent it
number
is
at
in
the
the
top.
email.
Okay.
That may not have been last term, Councilman Cash, because I remember last term when I realized like, oh, this was even a possibility, I was like, wait, what? Yay. But I think there's an improved functionality now, because I do vaguely recall what you're saying. Last term, that it was sort of like, oh yeah, this is great, it's an email, but unless they old school articulated their number, as we don't do now because we're all on like mobile phones, I'm showing my age, right? This is so-and-so at this number, say my message, repeat my number, right? And then it's sort of like, oh yeah, like they have your number on the phone, like that's how old I am. But I do recall what you're saying, but Rosie, I believe that has been cured,
Yeah,
like,
that used to happen, but it's also, if it's transferred from a Metro number, you might get that 862, 5800, 6800, whatever you said.
53.
Yeah, 5300, it might have been transferred from another number, and it would probably show up, it wouldn't show the actual caller. The caller would probably have to put their name in there, or
Right.
their number in there.
Right,
So
like
would-
one way, and it's been a while since I switched, one way I think it went to I got an email that I had to go on and log into the voicemail, but it showed the number. I wanted to go straight over to my phone and my voicemail, so, yeah, anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, it could go straight to
It's,
your email.
it's seamless now, you see the number and you just press play and you can hear it.
We can also work with you if you want to set up a new voicemail to, add something to it, or,
Right, like if you want to just, catch up on what your voicemail says, or maybe update that, or Rosie can assist you with that. And then I guess I would say, Rosie, maybe setting up a protocol, if somebody calls into the main number and Barbara or whomever is on the main phone routes it to Chair Cash, to that primary, whether whomever is answering the phone, if they transfer the call, reminds the caller, the number shown will be this office number. Kindly please repeat your phone number when you leave your message, and just making sure that that's a prompt on whoever answers the main phone line, because then, to your point there, Chair, if they get routed, then you won't lose that contact.
Makes sense. And usually they do, but
Okay.
we would like to have all that in though by the 3rd. Let me know what you want to do, because we wanted to go live with it the next week, and we need a couple of.
So you're gonna send an email tomorrow, Rosie, and if you're good with that, you don't have to respond. But if you wanna opt out, you don't
Yeah.
want it, I think Rosie's gonna set a deadline for that. Okay, Margaret as well, could you update us on the report of recurring reports? And then additionally, as it relates to the legislation that council passed regarding the environmental court reporting, you all might have seen 1 or 2 emails in your inbox, and it was sort of like, whoa, that is a whole lot of information. Are we going to be getting that literally every time environmental court meets, right? That could be kind of a little bit of a barrier to absorbing that information and putting it to a useful end as the council intended. So as we all know, it's not just enough to pass the legislation, you have to work on the technical back-end implementation of that. And to that end, Margaret Darby is in progress on that. Would you please update us?
So every week, we'll be getting information from the Department of Law regarding upcoming environmental court dockets. They have them every week on Tuesday, so tomorrow is the docket. And then we'll also be getting another docket with the disposition notices from the prior week. So today, I don't know how many people it went to, but we had some dockets come in on late Friday afternoon, so they went out this morning. You will be individually getting, instead of just one mass email going to all the council members, we have staff going through to determine which case is in what district, and then sending an email out individually to you if you have any cases that are either in your district coming up this week or were in your district last week, so that you know what happened and what's about to happen.
It's a lot on y'all.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Yes. Yeah.
I personally thought it was helpful, but I'm
Good.
used to reading those. So.
And so the documents that you're getting now, we've had a kind of some follow-up with the legal department to help make sense of the dockets, because they are heavily annotated with the legal department's notes, is a key to reading the docket. So everything that's in green and orange and purple and all the different colors that they annotate their dockets with for their own internal purposes is on there. And so if you receive the email and there's something in it that doesn't make sense to you, just let me know and we will try to get that hammered out for you.
As y'all may be aware, I think implemented last term, I had made this suggestion, but, you know, whether it be planning commission or the parks board agenda, right? Like, you used to be like, oh, wait, that was in my district. I didn't know that happened. Barbara on our staff team kindly, you know, looks at beer board agendas and parks board agendas and emails members when something related to their district is happening. So we're being proactive, looking at those agendas. I see this as being in a similar space, right? We're going to formulate a process that is proactive, that lets you all know when these are coming up. So we really do appreciate our staff on getting those that information to you.
On the
Report of reports.
on recurring reports, this is just a little taste of what will be coming, because this is not the final report. There's still information that we are tracking down, but you will see a 12-page report. It is a 12-page report. It is, right now, you'll be able to see it on a Excel spreadsheet eventually when we get it posted into the SharePoint. But this will be where you can go look to see, oh, there's these, you know, under source, these are all the boards and commissions and departments and whatnot that council over the years has requested recurring reports from. You have the code and bill number, and we have a link to the ones that are available where you can go look at the all the prior reports that have been issued. We identify what the cadence is of the reports and give you a little bit of information about what is in the report. So this is a work in progress. It's not final, but it is something for you to look at. We'll probably try to do some, you know, tiny URL links or something like that, so you can just click on it. But it'll ultimately be a Excel spreadsheet that you will have access to whenever you want. If you do your best, you know, research at 2 in the morning, you'll be able to look at it at 2 in the morning and not have to rely on staff to send you a copy of a report that was sent 5 years ago. So.
As y'all will recall, I've mentioned this in a previous meeting, and when I started in my capacity as vice mayor, I recalled reports that I used to get as a council member, right, from a wide variety of staff. The fuel hedging report, this report, the use of paper report, right, and like, you know, you got them at disparate times of the year from a variety of staff, and it was kind of like, wow, this is a lot of reports. Then I found out when I sat in this seat, there are a whole lot of reports that just come to the vice mayor. And so I was kind of like, well, how does the council get this? Will staff forward this? And so that kind of opened up the question, like, how many reports do we actually have required to the council and or vice mayor? And what is our total now, folks? 80?
Yeah, it's well above 80.
Yeah, so it's 80 plus reports. So what I would ask, in your capacity as chair, you know, dip into this report and see the ones that are kind of under the purview of your committee, and potentially contemplate, you know, if something's on a monthly cadence, might it be okay with a quarterly cadence? Was this report implemented for a very specific purpose and there was some merit in it in a 5 or 10 or 15 month time frame, but do we now still need to get this report? Maybe we do. But just kind of making yourself aware of all the recurring reports that departments under your umbrella of committee chairmanship are giving to the council. And if you have thoughts or suggestions or want to learn more from staff, we might want to look at legislatively, you know, changing some of these. Maybe quarterly becomes annual, maybe monthly becomes quarterly, biannual, that kind of thing, to just kind of you know, or not. Maybe it stays the same as it is and is working great, but would appreciate y'all's input on this.
I want to add one more thing. It is a report on recurring reports.
Yes.
So if it is an ordinance that says, oh, in 1 year we want to report on this, that's not on here. So kind of the housing and infrastructure stuff that we're doing right now, those are one-time reports. Those are not recurring reports.
Right.
So
Right, yes.
there are more reports that come in.
80 recurring reports, right. So, are there any questions about the report on recurring reports? Yeah, Pro Tem.
I think it may be helpful as we're looking at, I know through various committeeships, we'll look at if it makes sense to like change the cadence of some of these reports. But I think it will also be helpful to hear from like the general body with regards to like how often they are reviewing some of these reports. So my assumption is that some of these are ones that people are going to review on a, pretty frequent basis, and others may be some that people have never seen before or even opened. So I wonder if there's a way to maybe do like a anonymous Google Doodle or something to kind of collect data from council members on how often they are utilizing this material, and that would maybe help us determine how we can like whittle this down some and be more prudent with our resources, because I know it takes resources for people to like put this information together and send it out to us, and if people aren't reading it, then
Yeah. Well, and sometimes, it lives in a place online for the record, right? And we're wanting to make sure that, we're not just filling up council members' inbox, but this lives in a specific place where that department is responsible for, and for the public's awareness, right? Putting that on their website so that it's public facing, but then you're just telling council on a certain cadence, hey, this is where that lives, rather than filling up council's kind of inbox. And to Pro Tem's point, like who is looking at these. Pro Tem, I would ask or maybe suggest prior, if chairs want to kind of give this a first pass and have some thoughts on it, if you want to elevate that within your committee, right, and in your capacity, get some feedback from your committee members. Hey, I've become aware these are the 17 reports that the departments are giving. Members, do you have any feedback? Are you looking at these regularly? That kind of thing. That might be a good first pass if that's what I would suggest. But yes.
And I like the idea that it is anonymous, because there
Yes.
are things on here that I think, I read a lot of reports and sometimes I think, why do we get this report? I'm sure I can see why a decade ago when that report was requested, it made a lot of sense to figure out if we were reducing paper, but I think, how much time does it take to figure out now if we're reducing paper when we know everything's like on the cloud anyway?
Right. Yes. I just got that report today.
I really appreciate
Right.
that report. I see where it came from. I feel really bad every time I get that report.
Well, right. From multiple individual departments, not a single aggregated report, right? So then there's that too, like literally every single
Right.
individual department reporting to council on their use of paper. That's a lot of departments and it's.
I do question whether the cost of the time exceeds the cost of the paper.
I would concur with that, and I think too, maybe there's a way, because again, there's 80 of them, but by way of survey at some juncture, which are the reports, and it's gonna be anecdotal, but that, in your capacity as chair or as a member, that you look at the most, or that you care about the most, or you would wanna continue. We'd have to kind of contemplate the best way to, but I do think absolutely there's more of that we can do, to survey the body and get their feedback, and I'm very open to doing that. So yeah. Anything to share since we last met July 8th? Carpet, window shades. What else is coming? Anything in the renovation place, Margaret or Rosie?
I hope everyone's been to the office lately and seen the beautiful carpet and the nice clean walls. You probably haven't recognized that the shades have been changed, but they used to look like this, but now we have solid shades that come down and they just kind of blend in and they're seamless. You don't even notice they're there. They're lovely. And the next steps, which are hopefully going to be ramping up a little more soon, is we're looking at some furniture options for some public-facing furniture in the office. So
Basically our foyer area, kind of our public-facing area, and potentially our conference rooms that the public use. And just for the viewing public, our carpet was 20 years old, and chairs similarly aged, so we are being very prudent in those improvements. But you all may have also seen, we've gotten some historic maps. We are looking at the archives for old black and white photography of the construction of our building. Some images that are more representative of Nashville. No worries, Chair Hill, we're almost done.
Thank you for your service. Don't hate me because of Navy.
Wanting to get some of that kind of up on the walls, right? So that the office is really a reflection of Nashville. So we've gotten, thanks to Rosie, a few things framed. And I think we're still kind of a little betwixt and between on general services. I think we now have some more chair options. I don't know if y'all recall, but we did pass contracting resolution, so that we were down to one furniture vendor, and I guess now we have three that give us a few more options in Metro. So hopefully we can avail ourselves of those and have a few little public-facing updates. All right, that concludes everything on my agenda. Is there anything else that anybody wants to elevate? I will tell you, going forward, the next time we have an executive committee, once we're a little more in the midst of a year, I will allow, or not allow, but schedule 5 minutes-ish for each of y'all to give a chair's update. So anything that you want to share in here for the public or the body as far as what you're working on or you want to elevate. This was kind of a first getting started at the new turn of the chairmanship and a lot of kind of operational things and with this one resolution. But going forward, we'll hold some space on the agenda for you all and to elevate new business and so forth. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. All right. We are adjourned.